Welcome to the RC Motorsport Europe podcast.
What have we got next?
Next one up is the IC track categories. So that is GT8, GTE, 8th IC track, and 10th IC track.
Right.
Okay.
So big, wide load of different events.
Lots of different ones coming up. And we're still not to the big one. So this one is chaired by Mr. Daniel Jones, and there we see all the countries, the same sort of thing that we've seen at the in the previous categories. Yep. These are the proposals that are up. Again, you can see these in the other podcasts that we've done. The GTA as well, the world's locations that are coming up. And now let's find, I think this is the one that doesn't have a huge amount to look at. I think it is interesting that he's proposing that the 40 plus category be added to the GT8 EC for the same event. So there's basically a separate race for them. I think they did have one for GT8 Nitro, but they're basically suggesting to add one for the electric powered GT8s. And we're halfway through and nothing yet.
These are all obviously highlighted. Meaningful changes, but
yes.
And again, this is just what stood out to Frank as he breezed through. You're going to need to look through these. If this sparks your interest, I would urge you to dig deeper and find the rule changes that mean something to you. But these are just the ones that we just thought, they're by no means the big ones or the most controversial, or they're literally just the ones that we just thought, we could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, if you paused or looked through this already, there are things like, extending the warm-up times for some of the finals, or a different time difference between the last chance race and stuff like that. But we're leaving those. This one I thought was quite interesting. The current rule is basically to add in the rule that there is a technical team that was responsible for all technical aspects of the rules described within this appendix. And of course, this being an appendix of the main EFRA handbook.
Yeah.
So basically, he's suggesting it is time to develop rules in a more rational way by using industry experts as well as manufacturers.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So bringing the manufacturers on board and having them be part of the rules-making decisions process.
Yeah, and I've heard talk of this before, and I know some of the dominant brands within this section have been calling for something like this. Also to see a kind of level of consistency, because when you go to one track, you have one technical inspector that's been appointed by the club, and then you go to another track and there might be another technical inspector.
Yeah, it's usually one of the club members that's heading that up.
Yeah, and so that, at least if it's a consistent team every time, it gives you a certain amount of consistency of what to expect. So yeah, interesting to see that that's in there, and also that using industry experts as well as manufacturers. I suppose because manufacturers, they have a vested interest.
Yeah,
like they have an interest, whereas maybe the term industry experts could describe people who are more impartial. But who I don't know.
Yeah.
And this will be explained by Dan when they get to this, and then people will discuss it.
It's also worth noting that the final line here is that the EFRA chairman will make the final decision with regards to the rules changes proposed by the team after careful consideration, which may include discussions with drivers of the last EC.
Got you.
So
that's cool.
That is, he's putting it in the rules that he is also happy to talk with the drivers themselves. So the top racers in each category will also have the opportunity to be involved. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a pretty pertinent one. This one, let's see what this one is. I can't remember exactly. So this one, it clarifies some of the rules instead of at the beginning of the year, clarifying things like the diameters for the various categories, and the shore hardness. The shore is the word for the hardness of the tires, and that's for 1/8 and 1/10. And basically, and this isn't the only proposal that is on this, but basically what this is, and again, this is from the section chairman, change diameters to default diameters, because on some very high traction tracks, we need the ability to reduce this diameter for racing purposes, and also change the shores to default shore, whilst we need a default guideline. There are certain tracks that require the flexibility in choosing the shore. So high traction tracks, you need a higher hardness, or a harder tire, or a higher shore rated tire, and also possibly a larger diameter tire. So basically making it so that instead of there's just a default diameter and a default shore that's used across the rules, each track/event has its own default diameter and default shore. So that's a thing for the racing nerds to really dig themselves into.
There's another thing that I've spotted a line below that. Remove reference to rotation list, or as there is no list in existence. As the tyre supplier is a joint decision between EFRA and the organiser, all efforts will be made to ensure fairness. Because that has been a bit of a hot potato.
Yeah.
Which tyre is the chosen tyre? So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and the first line there also it clarifies as well, or just explains it, I should say, to amending the tire price setting rules, because until the calendar is published, the tire suppliers for the events are not known. So yeah, that is one for discussion for sure. This is a interesting one.
Okay, what's this?
For 2025, the 1/10 EC event only will be subject to two brands of tires only as a trial, to see if this method of multiple brands of tires will work. A decision on 2026 onwards will be made during the 2025 AGM.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So to allow up to 2 tire brands to be represented at events, to allow drivers to have a choice, and for tire suppliers to have some competition.
So, yeah, I mean, this is... I have views on control tyre. I used to think it was amazing because it meant fairness, but then I also enjoy the open tyre that we have in 8th off-road. But then also there's the affordability for the racers, which is also paramount, that they don't have to bring a myriad of different tyres. They just get sets of tyres and they get what they get. But this is almost like a halfway house between control tyre, but also that bringing that tyre competition back in, which I think is a compelling one. Interesting.
And we saw this in the was it Michelin and Bridgestone days of Formula One, and nowadays all the top categories of full size racing are single tire supplier. But it's not just down to racing; it's also down to business as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is another one.
Great.
Another one that's going to be, I'm sure, quite heavily discussed. Let's see what else there is. This one I thought was interesting because when you're at a foam tire event, so 1/10 and 1/8 IC, basically just all the tires are just chucked into a bin. Or each driver's tires are just thrown into their box, and that's it. So their driver number is marked on it. This one is allowing the drivers to mark their tires and write down the shore rating, only for the purpose of the driver to arrange them into sets, so they can have. So but this kind of highlights that when they pull out, okay, I've got 2 fronts and now I've got 2 rears. And then they walk off. They're not allowed to walk up with a shore meter. I don't know what it's called, but the thing that measures the hardness of the foam, and go, okay, well, these match. Left
this
to
is
right.
A better set.
Yeah. Or even measure the diameter of them, because they're not allowed to chew the tires.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one.
Okay.
A new tire control procedure to allow drivers to arrange their tires into run sets and to permit the use of a shore meter for this purpose only. Marking of control tires now formalized to ensure proper control of the tires by the organizers and to prevent any doubt that tires belong to a particular driver.
Okay.
So, yeah, because when they get them, they're given here's a brand new pair of rears and a brand new pair of fronts, and you get however many that you bought, whether it's 10 or 20 sets, or however many you're allowed to buy, I should say. And then you just open them and dump them into your box.
Mhm.
You're not allowed to mark them or measure them or true them or do anything to them in any way. You
Yep.
just put them on your car and you drive.
Yeah.
And this allows them to mark the tires. So, yeah, an interesting one. I don't know if that's a no-brainer. I mean, you let us know if you're watching this. If you think, well, that should just be voted in. This one is an interesting one only because the spectrometer is not used to measure the fuel.
Right.
So fuel may only contain methanol, so methyl alcohol, CS, lubricating oil, a small content of anti-corrosion chemicals, and a maximum of 16 or 16
% for 1/8 and 16% for 1/10.
So it has a different CS number in weight, not volume. Aromatic additives. So a spectrometer will be used to detect the use of any prohibited additives.
So they're just kind of upping the tools that the inspectors can use.
Yes. And so what is interesting about
5-year
this?
ban.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is interesting on this is that a spectrometer is not used currently to measure the fuel.
Yeah.
It's just.
What are they using then?
I'm not sure at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah. But basically, this is historically, there have been drivers and teams and whatever that have used just like wildly out of the rules fuel.
Yeah, well, we've seen it more in large scale, haven't we?
Yeah.
In recent years.
Yeah, and this is for the nitromethane powered classes. So
Yeah.
basically using a proper spectrometer. And apparently, I'm told it doesn't cost all that much. It's
Right.
not like it's a 10,000 euro expense that has to be carried around in a briefcase chained to someone's arm. It's quite relatively affordable now.
Okay.
But this is to prevent the use of already illegal additives by specifying the groups of compounds and the additional requirement to employ a spectrometer. But a 5-year ban if you're caught.
Very wow.
Yeah.
Ouch.
And what else? And again, we're kind of blazing through some of these. Feel free to read these and let your federation know exactly what you want or don't want to be voted in. But that is the most thing. But one thing to note here is that up for election is the 1/10 section chairman. So that at the moment there's one section chairman for this category, which is Dan Jones.
So Julie Thurston stepped down,
and Dan took over,
and Dan had already taken over just to do 8th GT.
Yes. And now he's kind of
overseeing
the whole section. So Vito Garacci from AMSHI. I'm not sure what position he holds in AMSHI. We think he's the secretary, but he's volunteered himself to be the 1/10 section chairman.
There we go. So that will be voted on. And obviously Vito's been very active. You'll see his name cropping up in a lot of the proposals. Yeah. So
we see a lot of Vito during the year.
We do, and we enjoy seeing him. That's great. So Nitro Track. Yeah. That's just a breeze through. There's many more. You will have seen us scrolling past. Yeah. So go to EFRA.ws and take a look at a deeper dive if you want to.
Yeah.
And you probably spot things that we've missed. Make your voice heard. Even if it's just in your own comments, get other people talking, get it out there. We'd rather have it out there this side of the AGM than after the first weekend of November when it's too late. So get involved and let's improve racing.
Check out EFRA.ws for more info about RC motorsport in Europe.